Hi everyone, Lothany Suktano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Deftones album, Private Music. California alternative metal legends Deftones are back with their 10th full-length LP. It is their first in 5 years, released since 2020's Ohms, making this the longest gap there has been between two Deftones albums, as the band up until this point has had a very lengthy and consistent career. And maybe that gap was necessary because even though the reception for Ohms was relatively positive, I mean, the negative backlash to my review of the album said as much. Personally, I found that project to be one of the least inspired in their entire catalog so far, as it felt neither adventurous or even up to the band's usual creative standards if they were going to play it this safe and predictable on an album such as this. But Private Music marks a new chapter for the band, maybe not a brand new direction, but still a new chapter, because culturally right now, I don't know if there's a whole lot of demand for Deftones to change their sound up that radically. While I do think the band's salad days are long behind them at this point, and I have accepted a while ago that it's highly unlikely they are ever going to drop a record again that hit as hard for me as White Pony did when I was in high school. Right now, at this very moment though, the band is seemingly as popular as ever, with a renewed interest in their trademark brand of crushing but dreamy alt metal, thanks to a new, young, passionate fan base of Zoomers. And all this fuss has not just led to a lot of love for the band's classic albums, which is to be expected more or less. There's also been a lot more appreciation for the more recent projects the band has dropped throughout the 2010s. And with so much support behind that signature Deftones sound right now, what better group to be stewards for it than the Deftones themselves? And the good news is the band sounds pretty excited to do exactly that on Private Music, with producer Nick Raskulinecz, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. I apologize if I'm not. But Nick worked with the band previously on 2010's Diamond Eyes, as well on Koyo no Kan in 2012, which did have me a little bit worried because Diamond Eyes is far from one of my favorite Deftones releases, as I found a lot of the songwriting on that to be a little bit too basic, straightforward, and formulaic. Many of the sounds on this record very loud and rigid and blocky, but honestly, I think the production and performances on Private Music come across a lot more soft around the edges, more fluid. The experience of this record feels a lot more like a really well-recorded live show or session recording, as opposed to a bunch of isolated bits of instrumentation being punched into a multi-track. And even if that is what Private Music is, I mean, kudos on managing to imbue it with a sound that comes across as at least a bit live. So yeah, the result there is a record and experience that feels genuinely intoxicating and alluring, like a lot of the band's classic material. And I would say on some of these tracks too, there is definitely a newfound purpose in Chino's vocal performances as well, due I'm sure to a lot of the lyrics dealing pretty directly in him grappling with mental health issues, inner turmoils, and showing strength and endurance during hardship. So there's a noticeable amount of tension, aggression, and passion going into these songs. And it's noticeable right from the thunderous opener of the record, which was also a single and sets up really the thick ocean of blaring guitars that we'll be immersed in for a majority of this record's runtime. The verses on this thing are full of chunky riffs and extended notes, with Chino's vocals sounding absolutely ferocious during some of the shouty spoken word passages. Meanwhile, his legendary cleans on the choruses are sounding as solid as ever. Milk of the Madonna is another strong single to have dropped before the album came out, and these highlights are met with equally strong deep cuts like Ecdysis, which features these very skeletal, stripped-back verses laid out with these sinister, deep bass lines, and anthemic hook. It's just this straight-up classic, loud, soft, dynamic Deftone sound with some even more classic groove metal movement to it. And the cherry on top are the subtle touches of synthesizers that just sweeten up the mix in a really interesting way. And the whole entire thing just sounds mountainous. I'm also loving the track Infinite Source, which is packed with these bright, crunchy guitars that lean into a really intense feeling of bliss that very few other tracks on this album have, at least to this degree, because this track sounds like bathing in sunlight or flying through the clouds, but still bringing the heaviness and edge edge that a good metal song should. Again, it's just peak Deftones, and nobody does it as well. Now, with that being said, I do think there are some moments in the track list here where the band feels a bit lost in their own sauce, like with the overly slow, dramatic pacing of the verses on Souvenir, a track that would be a total snooze if not for some of the righteous chord changes and sense that the song experiences at a few points, most notably right before the middle of the song. And also, I don't really know what Chino is trying to do on the track Cut Hands with like these little rap metal flows that I feel like the band hasn't really made a part of their sound in quite a while. While I know there are key cuts on Around the Fur that specialize in this sort of thing a bit, this is not really the band's bread and butter, nor is it part of their sound that has like aged the best, which is why it's even weirder to see them lean into this further on Metal Dream right after. With that being said though, there are some other fiery highlights in the track list, like with CXZ, which kicks off with these burning shrill layers of guitar, with the drums really fighting to punch through this mix. And while it is true these passages are paired with some slower, more easygoing moments to sort of give this song some much needed variation, I don't know if I'm into the song itself as much as I am into just like the intensity of all of it. Toward the back end of this album, we enter into ballad time with the song I Think About You All the Time. Chino gives one of his most raw and expressive vocal performances on the entire record here, and there are some heavy and final passages in 3-4 toward the back end of this track that kind of make me feel like I'm listening to the alt metal equivalent of a prom slow dance. After this point though, unfortunately, there aren't really any other tracks in the track list that I have super strong feelings on. Even the closer, that while heavy, I don't really think adds that much more to the track list. There's certainly not anything else that all the other songs so far didn't already. Still, with that being said, I do think Private Music is one of Deftones' most solid records in years, but if it's missing anything, I think it's just a sense of adventure, which is not only what makes a lot of their early work so exciting, but also creative peaks in their catalog, such as Saturday Night Wrist. And while it is clear that Private Music is fueled by a lot more passion and excitement than maybe Deftones' past couple of records were, a lot of this record kind of feels like the band is playing to expectations more than they are challenging themselves, which is why I'm feeling about a decent 2 strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Deftones, forever.